This is the Everyday AI Show, the everyday podcast where we simplify AI and bring its power to your fingertips. Listen daily for practical advice to boost your career, business, and everyday life.
This podcast is supported by Google. Hey everyone, David here, one of the product leads for Google Gemini. If you dream it and describe it, VO3 in Gemini can help you bring it to life as a video. Now with incredible sound effects, background noise, and even dialogue. Try it with the Google AI Pro plan or get the highest access with the Ultra plan. Sign up at gemini.google to get started and show us what you create.
Whether you're a super small local business or an enterprise company, so many brands have thrived by getting actual humans to visit their website. And then maybe they sign up for something, they purchase something, they get pixeled, right? And then you can hit those people with, ads down the line. So what happens now in the age of AI when there's maybe fewer humans actually visiting your company's website, maybe fewer opportunities to get more of those actual human eyeballs on, and instead maybe they're seeing your brand a little bit more in AI search? It's a big shift. It's actually happening very quickly. So what do brands do, and how can brands win in AI search? Well, we're going to be talking about that today and a whole lot more on Everyday AI. What's going on, y'all? My name is Jordan Wilson, and I'm the host of Everyday AI. This is your daily live stream podcast and free daily newsletter, helping us all not just learn generative AI, but how we can actually leverage it to grow our companies and our careers. If that sounds like what you're trying to do, this is your home, the live stream of the podcast, but where are you actually going to make it happen? That's on our website at youreverydayai.com. So there you can sign up for the free daily newsletter each day. We break down the daily podcast for the day, bringing you more key insights, maybe things we didn't even have time to get to. So make sure you go read that from today's conversation. And we also give you everything else you need to keep up with the world of AI news. All right, enough chit chat, y'all. I'm ready to talk AI search. How can your company win? Well, I have an expert here to help us figure that out. So please help me welcome to the Everyday AI Show, Chris Andrew, the CEO and co-founder of Scrunch AI. Chris, thank you so much for joining the Everyday AI Show.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Jordan.
All right, let's talk about it. Well, first, Chris, tell us what is Scrunch AI? What is it that you all do?
Yeah, so Scrunch AI is an enterprise platform to help companies optimize for AI search. We started the company because we saw it impacting us first as consumers. Our customer journey was changing. I was visiting fewer websites. I was shifting my search behavior to GPT and Perplexity. And in return, I'm getting an answer instead of 10 websites. That's going to change the entire purchase journey for the typical customer, be it B2B or B2C. So our business helps enterprises optimize for that new customer journey by helping you understand if you're showing up in AI search, how you're showing up in AI search, and what you can do about it. So optimization platform to improve for this new AI customer journey.
Yeah. And let's, before we dive into the bigger topic, Chris, let me know, what's the one biggest problem that they're usually facing when they come to you? Is it our traffic has gone nowhere? Or are people just seeing this and they're like, okay, maybe I don't know what's happening with our traffic, but I want to be showing up. What is it companies actually come to you with?
Yeah, it often starts from a very personal concern. Somebody on the team, often at the C-level, has been using GPT or Perplexity. It's completely infiltrated their life, and they finally do a search for their own brand category. And they realize, wait a second, when I search for, things my buyers, my personas search for, my company's not showing up the way I would have thought it would show up, right? If I ask a question about my direct product, maybe I'm represented. But if I ask a question about the category or kind of an earlier stage customer journey question, my competitors are showing up or my content's not showing up. So it starts from a point of concern internally that, hey, these are the types of things we used to show up for in traditional organic Google search, and we're not being represented in an AI overview or in GPT or Perplexity. And so that's usually the starting point from a concern perspective.
All right. And let's just skip straight to the end, Chris. So aside from, checking out your product, how can brands win in AI search is the question everyone's trying to figure out.
Yeah, I think I would encourage brands to monitor and to understand how they're showing up today. You can do this in your own solutions, right? Go look at your weblog, see how frequently AI crawlers are accessing your content. You can work in your analytics platform to deeply understand, are you getting referral traffic from AI? Or our customers are seeing that referral traffic from AI converts at 2 to 5x the rate of traditional organic traffic. Now, why? It's because people are making their decision in a platform like GPT. They're doing all their evaluation, all their comparison. By the time they visit my website, they are ready to buy. And so what I encourage brands to do is to pay attention to the actual data that's coming back from the platforms. And even if you're doing it manually, rather than leveraging a platform like ours, go in and start understanding how these models are representing you. What are they saying about your category, about you? What sources are they using? Go to the starting point and understand that as a consumer, we've started to outsource browsing. Like the fact that we've browsed the internet for years, it was out of necessity. We didn't even realize it, but we browsed because we had to. Browsing is inefficient by the definition of the word. I actually want the answer to my question. I don't want 10 websites that I have to go poke around and build a spreadsheet to analyze the category myself. So I think that's the big shift that we're encouraging companies to think.
And yeah, hey, live stream audience, if you have any questions for Chris, make sure to get them in now, because I think this is something, whether you realize it or not, it is something that's extremely impactful. So, Chris, you kind of talked about this shift, but I want to tap into it a little bit more because, companies, maybe a year and a half ago when they're like, oh, where do I start with AI? It was a tricky question. At least for me now, especially for individuals, I say, hey, if you're actually on the flip side of the coin of how do brands win with AI search, on the flip side, how can you start leveraging AI immediately, regardless of where you're at? Can you talk a little bit just about this concept of, now we're outsourcing our browsing to AI, and what does that mean?
Yeah, it means you need to rethink that customer journey, right? You mentioned it in your opener, but you've got your traditional marketing channels, you drive people to your website, you expect them to move around your website before they buy the product or request a meeting or click to download a white paper, whatever your conversion funnels may look like. We're looking at new conversion funnels where the primary consumer of content on your website is AI. Go look at your weblogs. You will see that these AI crawlers are all over your webpage trying to make sense of your brand. And if they can't find the answer on your website, they're going to go find the answer elsewhere, right? And so this idea that they are looking at everything externally on the internet about your brand is kind of the starting point for companies to pay attention to. And what that means from a shift perspective is your buyer's coming much more educated to your website. That can be a scary thing because you're losing control of the brand journey, the customer journey. Or you think of it as an opportunity. There's an opportunity right now to make sure that you're being represented the way you would like to in the AI search world. And a lot of companies are bringing more content online, right? They're making sure they have clear, concise information about their brand, their products, their services. They're adding new pages to their website. They're adding glossaries, FAQs, knowledge bases. Think about it. Large language models want language. They've been gathering all of the language in the world. And so when they come to your site to learn about your brand, they're looking for unstructured data. They're looking for text that they can then bring back into the model to synthesize with other sources to ideally represent you to your buyer. And so I would rethink that customer journey. This is not about just a change in search. This is about an entire change to the buyer journey.
And that's interesting, right? I've had this kind of I don't know if it's a hot take for a while, but, I think the traditional, marketing funnel, so to speak, is kind of flat, right? And you kind of talked about it there because, as more and more users are using these tools, right? As an example, deep research, right? Great tools from Google, ChatGPT and others, right? But is the kind of the top of the funnel content that a lot of brands would generally spend a lot of time on, is that still even worth it? Because now customers are coming in so much more well-researched and maybe more ready to buy. So yeah, how should companies be thinking about that, quote unquote, traditional, content strategy, the traditional funnel strategy that's been working great for decades?
Yeah, I think that top of the funnel content is still absolutely critical because maybe you're not educating a human on the very first step, but there is an AI model that is trying to educate a human. And so that AI model still needs access to that top of the funnel content. It needs access to the type of content that is about education, about your category more broadly. And so you absolutely should be creating that type of content, but think of the primary consumer of that content as an AI crawler. We don't need to be optimizing your blog post for 50 keywords and having all of the backlinks. You need to be optimizing your blog post about the education stage for an AI crawler trying to get concise, accurate data to represent you as an expert back to the ultimate buyer. So it's definitely changing because I think the primary consumer becomes an AI crawler making sense of that information. Down the road, it may become an AI agent or bot. I like to use a very kind of cheeky, playful example in this world, which is like if you've Googled for a recipe in the last 10 years, you end up on a recipe site where you can't find the recipe. You can't find the ingredients, right? You've got somebody's life story. You've got 3 videos, 2 ads, a pop-up, an email capture. You literally can't find the ingredients unless you scroll for 5 minutes. You ask that same question in ChatGPT and you exhale. You breathe a sigh of relief. You get the ingredients. You're like, this is why everyone is moving to AI search. It is a better consumer experience. Now, the model had to source that information from somewhere. So if you as a company start to think and cater to the AI crawlers as the key top of the funnel buyer, you're already winning against your competition. Shift your mindset internally to get ahead of this.
And yeah, love the comments and questions coming in from the audience so far. So keep them coming, and we'll get to some of these questions. But Chris, one thing I heard you say there, or allude to, is this concept of crawlers, right? Because I think a lot of companies, before there was this huge surge in AI search, right? Before the deep researches, before even Google had actually good integration with Gemini and search, before ChatGPT search, so many business leaders were blocking, quote unquote, AI bots. But what they didn't know is in some instances, like Google, you block Google's AI bot, that blocks you from Google as well. Not good, right? So what's the advice to companies that maybe made that decision a year or so ago, or companies that are still up in the air, like, hey, should we do that?
This podcast is supported by Google. Hey everyone, David here, one of the product leads for Google Gemini. Check out VO3, our state-of-the-art AI video generation model, in the Gemini app, which lets you create high-quality, 8-second videos with native audio generation. Try it with the Google AI Pro plan or get the highest access with the Ultra plan. Sign up at gemini.google to get started and show us what you create.
Great question. I was on with a Fortune 500 firm just this week, and at the very first thing we start with is a comprehensive site audit. Like, what happens when an AI crawler tries to retrieve your content? And step 1 was, you're blocking them. You're one of the few companies that is still blocking the AI crawlers. Now, this was done out of fear for their data, but this is a company that sells product and service. If you're a media company, it's a little more complex, but if you're a media company with a need to build your audience, you're going to want these models to identify your content. I was even on with a media company that was like, why is our podcast not showing up in AI search results? Why are our conferences not showing up in AI search results? Well, you've blocked them from your entire website. And I understand you have a paid content strategy where you're protecting your content, but at least unblock the other pages about your free podcast and your conference events. And so, I understand the fear in the marketplace, but this has already gone mainstream, right? GPT was adding 1 million users an hour a couple weeks ago during the image creation phase. We're coming up on well over, 1.5 billion unique monthly users of AI search across the leading platforms. Google is moving to AI search, right? If you do a Google search, you get an AI search result. So my message is you need to think that if you're in the business of getting your product and service in front of your buyer, your new broker to the buyer is the AI crawler. So if you're blocking your content, they're probably gonna misrepresent you because they have to piece together truth about your business from third-party websites. So think and cater to AI crawlers not as a foe, but as a partner in getting your message to your end buyer.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Google example is huge, Chris, because they've dominated 90 to 97% of the search market for decades. I was obviously at the Google Cloud Next conference and got to speak with a lot of Google execs. So if you think that this is some experiment, right? If you've seen the new AI mode, right? Yeah, we've all seen the AI search overviews, but now there's an AI mode and Google's deep research tools now with the 2.5. It's freaking fantastic. So if you think this is some phase or some beta program from Google, it's not. This is the new way that the internet works. So a question, a good one here from the audience, Chris, I was hoping you could tackle. It's a simple one, but I think a lot of people are having this question that Madonna had said here, saying, will SEO become irrelevant, or at least maybe traditional SEO, right? Where people are doing the more technical side, right? They're doing their H tags and their alt image, right? Will that traditional SEO become irrelevant?
No, I don't think SEO is irrelevant, right? Nor do I think it will become completely irrelevant. I think SEO is the foundation for how AI models determine what websites to look at, right? They need some way to understand what websites to evaluate when answering a question. That's how it's working today, right? And so, I think some of the darker tactics in SEO may go away, but I think what you need to think about in the shift is like once AI has identified your page, it's looking at your content in a completely different way, right? Oftentimes our conversations start with, I do a Google search, a Gemini search, and a GPT search, and I get 3 completely different answers. Why? The models work differently than the traditional Google bot, right? They're looking for the most relevant content to the intent of the buyer, and the structure of a prompt looks really different than a Google search, right? So Google search is often deeply keyword based. It's 1-word questions, it's 2-word questions. Prompts are human questions, right? And so I think SEO is the foundation. It is evolving, but the customer journey has permanently changed. And so in no way would I say get rid of your current SEO strategy. It's critical for ranking. It's critical for showing up to be considered, but it's changing rapidly. And underneath the hood, OpenAI has introduced its own search index. For the first few, the first kind of 6 months plus in the AI search space, Bing was the index that GPT was returning to. You'd ask a question in GPT, it would use the Bing search index. They've now got their own rival search index, which is indexing and making sense of websites in a different way. So we need to keep paying very much attention to the shift in the space, but SEO is still the foundation.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, I think it's one of those things, it is moving very quickly, right? Like I just gave I gave the example of, this morning or, yesterday I did a show on Claude, and by the time like we got it up on our website, they had already introduced like a bunch of new features as it comes to accessing the internet with their tools. So yeah, I think it's hard to keep up, but important to as well. So, maybe one thing, Chris, that we've kind of talked about, this concept of AI crawlers and having clear and concise language. Right. I think for a lot of people, when they've thought of, writing content for the web, because for decades, right, I've technically been doing SEO for, like 20 plus years. For decades, you mentioned the recipe thing, right? You've gotten rewarded for, keyword stuffing and throwing in, dozens of, semantic related keywords, like regardless of if it actually solved the user query. So how can big brands, especially if they're maybe hurting for website traffic, how can they go about making that shift, right? When they've stuck to a game plan for a long time, and maybe it's always worked, and maybe it's not working anymore.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned kind of the old tactics that worked, because that's what the incentives led search engine optimization folks to do, right? That's what the incentives were aligned for. What I'm so excited about with the AI search space, it's fundamentally better for humans, right? It's like, it's cutting through all of the noise to get me the answer, to find me the website that has the knowledge for the depth of my question. And again, this is why persona mapping is so critical. It's like you need to understand the intent of the buyer, right? Someone asking from one worldview, from one vantage point, one location is completely different than another. So I think, when you think about how you optimize for this, it's really going to be a question of creating content that is optimized for AI retrieval, right? You need to think away from keyword stuffing and more towards intent. And that's what we see kind of the largest businesses doing. Now, the foundation for how is it working begins with comprehensive monitoring, right? If you don't know the type of content that is showing up in AI search results, you don't know what to be modeling it after. If you don't know what websites are being frequently cited by AI sources for your category, for your buyer, you may be missing on a very simple way of increasing your presence by collaborating with those third-party content sources. Because one of the biggest shifts that I think brands are accepting is, for a non-branded search, it's 80% plus of the websites that are cited by models are third-party content websites, right? So if they're not asking about your brand, the models are trying to deeply rely on unbiased content. They'll look at your website and competitive content, but the world of third-party content becomes even more critical because AI is leaning on it to get a rounded view of the category and answering the question. And so as an organization, I'd want to understand what content is working, what websites are relevant, and what are the gaps and strategies that I can deploy to make sure that my organization is showing up the way I want it to.
Chris, can you talk a little bit more for our audience that isn't familiar? What are those third-party websites, right? And how can people, control what's being said there? How can they improve their, perceived reputation on those sites?
Yeah. So, there's no mystery here. I mean, when I say third-party sites, I mean everything that is not you on the internet, right? So let's say you're a beauty brand, right? You've got your website describing your products and services. Well, there's probably dozens of review platforms out there that talk about your products and services. There's probably hundreds of bloggers and influencers that talk about your products and services in your category. There's probably, dozens of industry sites talking about the products that are going, the ingredients going into your products. All of those websites are being used by AI to represent you in the category. And so whether this is a paid strategy in some cases where you're going to go work with them and pay for placement on their website, or it's an organic strategy where you're saying, hey, I'm listed on your site, but the product description is wrong, the pricing is wrong, can you update it? More affiliate. You've got opportunities to make sure that your brand is accurately and positively represented on the influential third-party sites that are influencing AI answers. But again, the starting point is you need to know what websites are being used by these AI models in the AI answers. And they're different across GPT, Perplexity, Claude. As you said, just introduce web search. The space is moving very, very quickly. Google AI Overviews has its own, powered system to identify what sites are relevant. Tracking that at scale is the opportunity and the need that most companies are starting with.
So, on that, we actually have two related questions on that exact topic from our audience, both from Jackie and Cecilia. So I'll kind of sum these up in one, but, Jackie and Cecilia are both essentially asking, right, are big brands kind of at an advantage here, right? Because they have way more customers, right? So how do smaller and medium-sized businesses, how can they still compete, right? When maybe not as many people know about them, and maybe traditional SEO might have been a little kinder to those smaller brands who really invested in SEO at a high level and put out great human content for many years. So how can, smaller brands kind of reconcile or still compete because of this, kind of third-party website priority?
Yeah, it's a great question. Brand is critical in this phase because the models are going to have a deeper understanding of bigger brands. There's more information out there. There's more opportunity to influence the way AI thinks at scale because they have coverage, right? You're going to be present in a lot of places. Now, what's really interesting about this shift is the long tail of content is becoming more relevant because the models are trying to match intent to the right source. And so we've seen a lot of instances where, content from the first couple pages of Google or Bing or Brave or whatever browser you're using doesn't even show up in an AI search result. It's the long tail of content where you might find a niche article from some blog or local business because they understand the intent of their persona and buyer. So again, we really start with comprehensive persona mapping because everyone's getting different answers in AI search. Now, as memory gets incorporated even more deeply, OpenAI announced just last week, I believe, that they're incorporating memory capabilities for all paid users now into AI search results. And so it's looking at your location, your information you've shared with it to get the right result to you. So I actually think small and medium-sized businesses have a huge opportunity to continue to produce targeted content for your relevant buyer and understand that AI is going to do the work and find it. And so I think that's a huge level of encouragement to say you're not massively disadvantaged in this shift. Continue to produce thoughtful content for a human, right? One of the beautiful things is you don't need to write for humans and robots. These robots read like humans. Like I like to joke, large language models are like babies. Like what you tell it, it regurgitates, right? It spits the information back to you. So the more information you give it about your brand, the more it's going to do its best to represent you. So continue to produce that content for a human reader and know that the crawlers are going to access it and give you an opportunity to be present.
It's a great, well thought out response, and a good point too on the OpenAI update that now they've had the memory for 8 or 9 months, but yeah, they just rolled out the ability for ChatGPT to use your entire chat history, not just those saved nuggets of memory. So a great call out there, Chris, in terms of personalization, localization. Yeah, large language models aren't deterministic, which is important. So one other question that I had, and you've mentioned a lot, things like AI search, companies and brands in order to win need to focus more on things like brand reputation, the consumer journey, understanding user intent, which sounds hard, right? Like I know a lot of people in my head personally, when they hear that, they're probably like, all right, let's get the whole team together and let's start, doing focus groups and meetings. But like, isn't AI, Chris, really good for that?
It is. I think AI does a really good job of understanding at scale. I mean, it's the ultimate analyst, right? It's the ultimate, it has the ultimate ability to do that research for you. I mean, one of the things that's been surprising in starting the company has been that the B2B decision-making process has moved into these channels arguably faster than the consumer-making process, because sophisticated users living in AI as a tool starting to ask all their questions in it. And so as you're doing the pull the whole company together to evaluate, well, the more context AI has about your business problem, your company, and the more you enrich the prompt with that context, the more of a thoughtful response you're going to get back. These things are great thought partners. Now, they do still hallucinate sometimes. They will sometimes make up answers if they don't have data to base it on. So you need to bring a judicious lens, to the ultimate advice that it's providing you. You know your customer well, you know your market well. But as you said, it's a good thought partner in kind of distilling what you need to do as part of this shift.
All right. So, Chris, we've covered a ton in today's conversation that I think is really going to help a lot of business leaders who are grappling with this new challenge of winning in the era of AI search. But as we wrap up today's conversation, what is your one most important piece of advice? Like, what should a business leader go do today in order to start this winning on this uphill battle?
Yeah. I would say stop ignoring it and go participate. And I think that's what's happening with your peers, right? My simple advice, and I don't think this is as controversial a take now, 18 months in, all of search is going to be AI search. Google is cannibalizing itself with AI overviews powered by their own large language models. They invented the space. They're not going to give up the space, but they are going to allow AI search results to infiltrate the search experience. We see organizations who are seeing their AI referral traffic nearly double month over month. And this has been sustained now for going on 6 months. This has the attention of the executive team. The largest companies in the world are shifting their marketing strategies to think about AI as an ICP, as a primary consumer of content. And so get a team together, start paying attention, start with some basic monitoring. When you're ready for optimization and infrastructure to manage these crawlers and agents, obviously, platforms like ours exist to do that, but it exists in a place that needs to start with a foundation of understanding if you're showing up, how are you showing up, and why. So come to the starting line. Your consumers are already there. That's why I started the company. I realized that I, as a consumer, had already changed my behavior. I'm not waiting for companies to adapt.
Great advice. And I think, whether you're someone that's in, SEO, content marketing or not, it doesn't matter, because what Chris just laid out there is the truth. All search is going to become AI search. So if you want your company to remain relevant in the future online, you have to pay attention to it. So Chris, this was a great conversation. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join the Everyday AI Show. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jordan. Great to see you.
All right. As a reminder, y'all, we covered a lot there, some fantastic insights, and there will be a whole lot more in our newsletter. So if you haven't already, please make sure to go to youreverydayai.com, sign up for the free daily newsletter. If this was helpful, tell someone about it. Chris just gave a ton of great advice, putting a ton of value out there in the world for free. So thank you for tuning in. Hope to see you back tomorrow and every day for more Everyday AI. Thanks, y'all.
This podcast is supported by Google. Hey everyone, David here, one of the product leads for Google Gemini. If you dream it and describe it, VO3 in Gemini can help you bring it to life as a video. Now with incredible sound effects, background noise, and even dialogue. Try it with the Google AI Pro plan or get the highest access with the Ultra plan. Sign up at gemini.google to get started and show us what you create.
That's a wrap for today's edition of Everyday AI. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a rating. It helps keep us going. For a little more AI magic, visit youreverydayai.com and sign up to our daily newsletter so you don't get left behind. Go break some barriers, and we'll see you next time.